With the news of both eUnited and Tempo Storm dropping their rosters this month, it looks like the tumult of North American Siege still isn't over yet. In an unprecedented move, the Soniqs have officially benched 4/5 of their roster in Iconic, Staaben, Gomfy, and Easilyy. In an episode of the 6on6 podcast, Super, who now becomes SQ's last remaining member, detailed both the roster announcement and provided some insight on why the org suddenly felt it was necessary. He primarily cited attitudes within the team as the primary culprit, stating that orgs and players had differing visions of the future and that he himself is ultimately invested in the org and their ideologies. He also mentioned things like different individual priorities, players not being driven on the same level, scheduling conflicts, and seemed to suggest that things behind the scenes were not as smooth as some people may have assumed for a roster that was still performing at a top level in NA. For the past two stages in the NAL, the Soniqs have had a roster that placed just below major qualification both times, a consistent lineup with a lot of upside potential that just wasn't really able to break into that top 4 in NA, and most people didn't have a reason to assume that there were problems behind the scenes. But then last Friday we start seeing rumors and Game of Thrones gifs flying around on Twitter, and before we know what's going on, suddenly it looked like the Soniqs' future was in jeopardy. Super went on to mention that this has been in the works for a while now, and already a squad of free agent players has been assembled, with 3 players being basically locked in and several still being trialed out. And considering the free agent market just got a massive explosion over the past few weeks, I don't think it's unreasonable to assume that players from eUnited or Tempo Storm might be in consideration for this new team. But the issue is, the Soniqs aren't able to confirm anything about this new team until the transfer window opens again in February, probably after the Invitational is over, which also means that their chances of making it to SI are shot as well. If you look in the qualifier blog post, it mentions that there's one team from the US division that's being invited to the closed qualifier portion, and the fact that there aren't 2 spots for US teams means that spot is going to disrupt. Super technically does have the ability to field a team for SI quals and play through the open portion if he chooses, but on the podcast he mentioned that that's not something he's currently aware of if he'll do. He also did talk about the timing of this whole thing, which does make sense when you think about it. If they're not confirmed to play in the Invitational, that would put their next official match as being in March, so this would technically be the best time to make a massive change like this, even when you can't make acquisition announcements for quite some time. But even before I could get to speculation on where the benched players on SQ might go next, the news also dropped today that Easilyy is retiring from competitive Rainbow Six. This man's been playing Siege since the year 1 days on Xbox and has been around the world and to more invitationals than most people could dream of, and after this benching has decided it's also time to hang up the gloves. He's been doing exceedingly well as a streamer though, so I highly doubt that him retiring from comp is the last that we will see of him. But it still doesn't make it hurt any less. Now, I'm very aware that there are a few rumors flying around that people claim is the main reason for SQ making this change, but for the sake of not spreading misinformation or slander or, I don't know, getting called out on Twitter, actually I don't care about that one, that one's fine. I'm not going to talk about those rumors here, but I'm also a little hesitant to take everything that Super said on this podcast at face value. He was giving mostly politically correct answers to a lot of Intero's questions, but unfortunately face value is all we really get for Siege in terms of understanding why orgs make these moves. So all we have now is the fact that the Soniqs are going to completely remake their roster. As far as I'm concerned, I have results that I can look at that demonstrate that this team clearly was doing something right, but if the team dynamic isn't working or there's some problem behind the scenes, then good. Soniqs needed to make some change to turn things around, but the investment into Staaben and Gomfy alone was a massive undertaking for SQ to do, and they weren't even able to use them effectively straight out of the gate because of visa problems. This benching to me is a pretty clear statement of that investment ultimately being a failure in the eyes of the org, and I know it's a blunt way to put it, but fight me. I do think that it sucks that iconic Staaben and Gomfy have to find new places to play, and that Easilyy chose to end his career at this point. And in his case, especially with the illustrious career that he's had, I genuinely wish him all the best, and I hope his streams keep going. But the fact does remain, only one man now stands on that Soniqs roster. Who are the other 4 who are going to be joining him? And what will this roster look like when the NAL resumes in March? We've never seen a move in Siege history that involves 4 players getting the boot like this. So, congratulations to the Soniqs. you've just made history. That's all from me. Assuming that there's enough interest, I can also do a summary on the E-United and Tempo Storm situations. North America's become kind of unstable over the past month, so if you are confused about it, let me know and I'd be happy to whip one up. But in the meantime, hit up my Twitter, my Twitch, and this YouTube channel for more in the coming days, please and thank you. And be aware that not everything you read on Twitter and Reddit is the cold hard truth. Let a rumor be just a rumor until there's official confirmation. I'll see you later. Peace.